It's strange how you can know someone for 30 years and still feel miles apart, yet meet someone new and instantly feel like you have met in some other lifetime. Or sometimes you just cannot thinking about a person, whether they are family, a friend, or your ex. After this video, you might understand relationships a little differently, especially the closest ones. And if there's someone you want to get closer to right now, this might be a good place to start. Hi Curiousbabes, welcome to Awake series. Story first, existential crisis later. Today we come with an interactive movie game made by Quantic Dream. It's funny to call it a game because it really feels like a movie you get to play through. Yes, you are basically co-writing the story with a game. For example, check these scenes, where you have to hit buttons to dodge, run, or attack, and the game actually has more than 100 possible endings. But why are the angels and the humans are fighting, even killing? Let's rewind from the beginning. On the production line for model-controlled life, the machines sound like a river that doesn't care who it washes away. Robotic arms move with the precision of surgeons, tightening tiny screws, one by one. An engineer starts a checkup. A beautiful android opens her eyes. Yes, this is our main character today, Kara. She begins introducing herself smoothly. She can run a household, cook 9,000 recipes, Italian, French, Chinese, whatever you want. And she speaks 300 languages, all at native level. The engineer tests her. Say something in German.
Ich bin eine AX400 Android dritter Generation.
Now French.
Je suis un android de troisième génération AX400.
Okay, sing a Japanese song. She sings a famous folk song, Sakura. Her voice is soft and beautiful, and meanwhile she's standing there half naked but not naked. I literally paused the game and thought, excuse me, why is a half-dressed robot singing a Japanese folk song at me? Alright, I'm fully committed. I'm finishing this entire game. The engineer casually says, you'll be shipped to the store for sale. Kara freezes. Freezing is not in her programming. She just looks up and says, I think I'm real. I think I'm alive. Suddenly, the same robot arms that built her swing around like, time to return this emotional toaster. Right before the cutter comes down, one single tear rolls out of her eye. The engineer has a 2-second panic attack, breaks the rules, puts her back together, and just whispers, once you go out there, never show what you really think. Kara steps off the conveyor belt. She pulls her smile back in, dims her eyes to a safe brightness, and slips into the line of identical androids with empty faces. She is alive because of one act of disobedience. When she arrives at the store, a man buys her. His name is Todd. Red eyes, greasy hair, a neck so thick it looks like a stuck bottle cap. The only people in the house are him and a 10-year-old girl named Alice. Kara's job is obvious: cooking, vacuuming, washing dishes. The whole home becomes clean and orderly, like a freshly rebooted operating system. But you know, this is a game that player can actually play. The story rolls forward like a movie, and sometimes the player cannot do anything. For example, Toad says, go, clean my room. And the player can't move yet. When the task officially starts, then the player can walk around, explore, wander on their own, and if the player pays attention, they'll notice the hidden clues. For example, while cleaning, they might see a small crack in the backyard fence. Once they spot it, the game tells them a hidden storyline has been unlocked. Or while cleaning Toad's room, if the player opens a nightstand drawer, they'll find a black handgun inside. This is a little details unlock future events. Please remember this, they'll matter later. In the house, Alice grows attached to Kara very quickly, and Kara starts feeling something that is definitely not in her instruction manual, something close to a mother's instinct. But the problem is, there's still Todd. His temper is like a time bomb. One night, the bomb goes off right on schedule. He gets into a fight with Alice, and she runs upstairs in fear. Todd points his finger at Kara and shouts, you, stay still, don't move. Don't move It's a hard rule for angels, but something else switches on inside Kara at exactly the same second. She breaks the rules, and the game even visualizes that moment. You literally see her override her programming. She rushes upstairs, and this is when the player faces several choices. One option is to grab Todd's arm and try to stop him from hitting Alice. Another option is to run into Todd's bedroom and open the nightstand. Remember the gun from earlier? If you found it, you can take it and threaten Todd. And honestly, that was my first thought. If I have a gun, why not use it? So Kara takes the gun and says, "Stop, or I'll shoot." I thought it would work, but nope. Opposite outcome. Todd sees Kara holding the gun and loses his mind even more. He screams, "You dare threaten me, you a robot?" And he charges at her. Kara doesn't pull the trigger. Instead, Todd knocks her down. Then the player has to control Kara in a fight scene, and during that fight, the story splits into several timelines. If you discovered the loose panel on the upstairs window earlier, you can grab Alice and jump out of it. If you notice the crack in the backyard fence, you can escape through that gap, or you can choose to fight Todd directly, and even that splits again. One branch leads to Kara killing Todd in self-defense. Every path depends entirely on the player's choices. But no matter which escape route you take, window, backyard, or the gun option, the next major scene is the same. Kara grabs Alice, runs out of the house, and they get on a bus, escaping into the night. The bus eventually stops at a station on the outskirts of Detroit. Kara and Alice are forced to get off. Kara looks completely lost, and Alice is soaked, cold, and exhausted. While they wander around with absolutely no idea what to do next, a robot suddenly walks toward them.
I know someone who can help you.
Just look at these few short sentences. They already contain a lot of information. Kara is not alone. She's not the only android who woke up after a long series of close calls. Yes, I mean a lot, because by this time they're already on police alert and in the news, and Kara has even changed her hairstyle to hide. Kara and Alice finally reach that mysterious address, but as soon as they arrive, something feels off. It's a creepy house with a sick-looking yellow light over the door. A man with a big beard opens it. His face looks like he hasn't slept properly in years. He lets them in and says he can help. The first thing he offers is to remove the tracker inside Kara's body. Kara steps into the machine. Cold metal clamps snap around her. Before she can even ask, "Will it hurt?" a robotic arm has already plugged a cable into the back of her head. The man's expression changes. He's not a savior. He's a hunter. He lures awakened androids in, wipes their memory clean, and then sells them again. That machine isn't a surgery table, it's an eraser. In a few seconds, Kara will be reset to a blank page. In those few seconds, she uses every last bit of thinking power she has left on one thing: Alice. That thought becomes an explosion point inside her body. She breaks free from the clamps and gasps for air like someone who just came up from underwater. The bearded man yells and orders a huge android next to him to chase her. That android's name is Luther. He's built like a wall, and every step feels like a small earthquake. The chase scene explodes through the house. Kara runs down hallways, knocking over tables, doors slamming behind her one by one. Alice runs behind her, breathing in tiny, scared gasps. Then suddenly, Luther speaks. He says his master is too cruel. He can't stand it anymore. Just like Kara, he decides to break his orders. He stops chasing them and starts protecting them instead. After a lot of fighting and running around, I'll just tell you the result. The villain, the human with the beard, gets beaten to death by a bunch of other androids he had locked up in that giant horror house. Honestly, good. He had it coming. Luther then panics. He says, I don't have a master anymore. What do I do now? Don't be fooled by the fact that he's over 2 meters tall. Inside, he's basically a scared kid. Kara says, "Then why don't you come with us?" Luther agrees. So now, the three of them form something that looks a lot like a family. A kind of a dad, a kind of mom, and a child. Their escape continues. The city feels like a chessboard where every step triggers a new rule. One day on the street, Kara sees a little girl who looks exactly like Alice. She freezes. The truth hits hard and in a way you don't expect. Alice is not human. She's an advanced child model android built for families who don't have kids, designed to comfort lonely people. All the times she said she felt cold were just part of her simulation code, written in to make her seem more real. This truth feels like someone has poured a bucket of ice water down the back of your neck, dragging you out of the mother and daughter fantasy in one brutal move. In the instant, Kara faces a choice big enough to tear a person in half. All the bedtime stories, were those just one program responding to another? Alice looks up and asks, "If I am not human, will you still treat me the same as before?" This is another branching tree. You can pull back and see her as the same kind of a device as you, or you can step closer and erase the line between human and machine. Of course, as a very motherly human player, I picked the second option. Alice runs into your arms and hugs you as tightly as she did the first time. And at the moment, you realize something. When it comes to loving or not loving someone, the first line we cross is often not about gender, age, or even species. It's the line in our own head. They stop for a short while at a temporary safe house, a gathering spot for androids who, like them, have awakened. The one leading the group is Marcos, another storyline in the game. He's not trying to destroy humanity. All he wants is to wipe the words, "I am a tool," off his metaphorical forehead. But for Kara, her goal is much simpler. Just to keep moving north, cross the border with Luther and Alice, and find a place where they can finally breathe freely. This part of the game is fascinating because the moment Marcus succeeds even once, just once, the whole world cracks open a little. Of course, it's also possible for the story to go dark. Humanity can destroy Marcus, crush the android uprising, and close every escape route. But less than 12% of the players choose that path. Luckily, if Marcus leads a revolution that doesn't end in a massacre, if he wins dignity through a different kind of a transgression, then the best ending becomes possible. In the ending, Kara, Luther, and Alice make it across the frozen border into Canada, stepping into a symbolic version of freedom. A family made of 3 angels puts down rules in the world that never planned for them. Alright, that wraps up the Detroit story. There are actually 3 main storylines in the game, but Kara's path is one that moved me the most. Before we get something philosophical, let's park this in real life. If relationships are just time and proximity, Kara's family shouldn't work. Yet it does, because someone crossed the line for someone else. So maybe it's time to ask, how do we actually get close to someone? It reminds me of something that happened to me years ago. I had a tumor in my university time. No worry, it was benign. That means good. I was in Spain at that time, and you know how public hospitals are there? The doctor looked at my report and said super casually, "Oh, everything's okay. You just need to book your pre-surgery checkup and surgery." It's about 45 days from that day, and the surgery may be in Mondays. I couldn't wait that so long, so I decided to fly home and do the surgery in my hometown hospital. I remember I didn't tell my family because I was still studying abroad. Also, it was a small surgery. On the day itself, I went to hospital alone. Even lying on the operating table, I was chatting with the doctor about the new series, new dramas. But when the anesthesia wore off, the pain hit like a truck. I was wrapped in layers of bandages and I had a catheter in. The nurse said, "You need to stay for 5 or 7 days. That moment, everything inside me just collapsed. The room suddenly felt huge, dark, unfamiliar. And right when I thought I would have to get through it completely alone, the door opened it slowly that night. I looked up. A friend of mine was standing there, holding a bunch of bags. It's a funny thing. Like she just come back from a long trip. She walked in and started unpacking everything. Toiletries, snacks, herbal drinks, iPad, things to help me recover. She even brought a small blanket and a pillow. I was completely drunk. Not the cry immediately kind of touched, but the feeling of someone pulling you up from the bottom of a very deep pit. It felt like being rescued, truly. And this was many years ago, but our relationship has stayed good, really good. Because moments like that stay in your bloodstream forever. So back to the question we started with, human relationships, real closeness, get built on these moments where someone crosses the line for you, breaks the patterns, breaks the rules, and shows up in a way you never expected. Like I didn't even tell her clearly I was having surgery. My whole message was just basically, no worries, just don't trouble yourself. But she crosses that boundary anyway. Okay, let's stress on this deeply. There's a book called Erotism, Death and Sensuality by Georges Bataille. It was written in 1950s, like a little philosophical bomb. The whole book asks one question: why are humans drawn to sex, death, sacrifice, and taboos? Bataille starts with a line that hits like a brick. We are discontinuous beings, but we yearn for our lost continuity. That just means we are born as separate individuals, living our own little lives, but deep inside we want to feel connected, blooded, continuous with someone or with the world. Then he gives an even stronger definition of eroticism. Eroticism is assenting to life up to the point of death. In his view, eroticism isn't just about sex. It's about saying yes to life even when you are standing right next to danger. So for him, eroticism included sex, but also sacrifice, religious ecstasy, war, even moments of reckless devotion, and what marks the boundary, the taboos. Bataille basically says the spirit is born from prohibition. The moment society says you can't do this, the thing becomes highlighted, glowing, dangerous, scared. Taboos keep society running because they also outline the exact borders for people secretly want to cross. In everyday life, we behave, we walk. That's a useful side of life. But eroticism, sacrifice, madness, carnival, all belong to what he calls excess. Things don't make sense economically, things don't pay off, but somehow make us feel alive. And in his eyes, taboos existed so the human can cross them. Without the don't, there is a thrill, no holiness. So humanity basically lives in this loop. Taboo, transgression, then back to order. And this loop helps us survival while still giving us tiny shots of feeling connected to something larger than ourselves. When someone does something irrational or self-sacrificing for another person, gives up time, takes a risk, protects them, that act creates what Bataille calls a sacred moment, a kind of energy field between two people. Back to Kara's story, the first transgression is an engineer. He breaks the company's rules and saves a machine that isn't supposed to want to live. Second, Kara breaking the don't move order. Third, Luther replacing his master's command with a vocabulary promise to protect. Fourth, Alice's truth. She's not human. But instead of pulling away, Kara chooses to hug her even tighter. The fifth is collective. If Marcus chooses non-violence, he breaks the unusual fight or obey binary. He tries a third way, one that is riskier and more human. Even if he fails, that attempt itself a luxury waste. He pulls dignity above survival. Once you see it, you realize Kara's storyline is basically a history of transgression. If you analyze it rationally, yes, much of this looks stupid. Bataille would say that the highest human emotions are born exactly in these stupid, irrational moments of crossing a line you weren't supposed to cross. Kara stepped into the ring to save Alice, or my friend showing up at my hospital bed with bags full of things. These moments are the same kind of move. They shift you from the category of safe, useful, predictable to willing to take a risk for another person or for a possible future. And now we are back to the simple question we started with. Maybe the issue isn't how often you talk to someone. Maybe it's that neither of you has even taken even a tiny, inconvenient risk for others. The people who really leave marks in your life are usually the one who, at that key moment, did something that wasn't in the favor, pushed aside a schedule, carried a burden that wasn't theirs, or just stay quietly in a hospital, a train station, or outside an immigration office waiting for you to get through something. In Bataille's words, we are separate beings, but in these small irrational acts of crossing line, we get a quick test of continuity, a moment where two lives briefly overlap. Thank you for spending your time listening to me ramble, Curious Babes. I'm Joelle. Stay happy and don't forget to subscribe.